The Nexus system had once been home to 12 billion people living on 5 planets around a bright yellow star. Now it was a graveyard. The planets were gone, leaving only chunks of dead rock floating in space. The star itself looked sick, its light dim and weak like a dying candle. Captain Hyunsu commanded the largest fleet the galaxy had ever assembled. 3,000 ships from 12 different worlds hung in space around what used to be the 4th planet. His flagship alone was 15 kilometers long and carried weapons that could crack moons in half. Behind him, the combined might of the Valkyrian Armada, the Zenthi Warfleet, and the Krillian Dreadnought Corps waited for orders. "What happened here?" asked his science officer, a young Valkyrian named Jun-Ho. "Scan everything," Hyunsu ordered. "I want to know what could do this to an entire system." The results came back quickly and they made no sense. The planets had not been destroyed by weapons. They had been taken apart piece by piece, their matter converted into something else. Even the star was being drained, its nuclear fire slowly dying as something fed on its energy. "Captain," Jun-Ho said, his voice shaking, "I am reading something massive approaching from the edge of the system." On the main screen, something appeared that hurt to look at. It was shaped like a ship, but made of materials that seemed to change between metal and living tissue. 200 kilometers long and 50 wide, it moved through space without engines or thrust. Instead, it seemed to step between different points in space, ignoring the laws of physics. "All ships battle formation," Hyunsu commanded. "Charge all weapons." The alien ship stopped moving and hung in space like a dead thing. Then it spoke, not through radio signals but directly into the minds of every person in the fleet. "I am the Devourer," the voice said. It sounded like the death of stars. "I have consumed 17 galaxies before yours. I turn matter into thought, energy into pure calculation. Your galaxy will be next." Admiral Hyunsu had fought in hundreds of battles. He had faced enemies with superior weapons and better ships. But he had never faced anything that spoke like this, with the voice of something that had eaten entire galaxies. "This is Captain Hyunsu of the Galactic Council Defense Force," he broadcast on all frequencies. "You are ordered to surrender and submit to Council authority." The Devourer's mental laughter was like ice in their minds. "You misunderstand. You are not my enemies. You are food." The battle began without warning. The Devourer did not turn to face the fleet or raise shields. Instead, it simply pointed one end toward the nearest group of ships. A beam of nothing shot out, and where it touched, ships simply stopped existing. Not destroyed or blown apart, but unmade at the level of atoms. "Return fire," Hyunsu shouted. 3,000 ships opened fire at once. Plasma cannons, gravity bombs, matter disruptors, and quantum torpedoes lit up the space around the Devourer. The alien construct should have been vaporized instantly. Instead, the weapons passed through it like it was not really there. "It is phasing through our attacks," Jun-Ho reported. "Our weapons cannot touch it." The Devourer moved again, this time appearing directly in the middle of the fleet formation. Ships tried to ram it, but they passed through its hull harmlessly. Then the creature began to feed. Tendrils of energy reached out from its body, touching ship after ship. Where the tendrils connected, the ships began to dissolve, their metal hulls turning to dust that flowed into the Devourer's body. "All ships retreat," Hyunsu ordered, but there was nowhere to run. The Devourer moved faster than thought, appearing next to ships that tried to escape. It did not hunt them like a predator. It harvested them like crops. Far away on the edge of the system, the Indomitable watched through long-range sensors. Lieutenant Sumin recorded every detail of the battle, her face pale as she watched the greatest fleet in galactic history being destroyed in minutes. "Sir," she said to Admiral Daeho, "the Council fleet is being wiped out. Over 2,000 ships destroyed in the first 3 minutes. "What about their weapons?" Captain Minna asked. "Are they having any effect?" "None at all. The enemy ship phases through everything. It is like it exists in a different dimension." Daeho watched the tactical display with cold eyes. The alien creature was not just powerful. It was operating under rules that the galaxy did not understand. Council ships were built to fight other ships that followed the same physical laws. This thing followed different rules entirely. "How long until we reach firing range?" he asked. 20 minutes, sir," replied the navigation officer. "Good. That gives us time to study how this thing works." On the flagship of the dying fleet, Captain Hyun-Soo made his final report. Around him, the bridge was filled with smoke and sparks as the ship's systems failed one by one. Through the windows, he could see the Devourer growing larger as it absorbed more ships and their crews. "This is Captain Hyun-soo to any surviving vessels," he broadcast. "The enemy cannot be harmed by conventional weapons. It phases through matter at will. Recommend immediate withdrawal of all Council forces. Warn the homeworlds, this thing cannot be stopped by anything we have." The Devourer's tendrils reached his ship. Hyun-soo felt the hull begin to dissolve around him as the creature fed on the metal and energy that made up his flagship. His last thought was of his home planet, and the billions of people who would soon face the same fate. In exactly 4 minutes and 17 seconds, the battle was over. Of the 3,000 ships that had come to defend the galaxy, only 17 survived. They fled into hyperspace carrying news of the defeat to the Council worlds. The Devourer hung alone in the empty system, now noticeably larger than before. It had grown by feeding on the matter and energy of the dead fleet. Around it, the debris of shattered worlds continued to orbit the dying star. Interesting, the creature thought to itself. These beings built their ships well. Each one provided substantial mass and energy for conversion. This galaxy will feed me for some time. It turned its attention to the star itself, extending feeding tendrils toward the nuclear fire at its heart. The star would provide enough energy to sustain it while it planned its next move toward the populated core worlds. The Devourer did not notice the small human ship watching from the system's edge. To a creature that had devoured galaxies, one tiny vessel was beneath notice. It would deal with that minor irritation when it finished draining the star. 20 light-years away, the surviving Council ships jumped back into normal space and began broadcasting emergency signals. The news they carried would shake the foundations of galactic civilization. For the first time in recorded history, the combined might of the Council's greatest fleets had been completely destroyed by a single enemy. But on the bridge of the Indomitable, Admiral Dae-ho was smiling. He had seen something in the battle that the Council ships had missed. The Devourer was powerful, but it followed rules, different rules than the galaxy was used to, but rules nonetheless. And humans had always been very good at breaking rules. "Minna," he said quietly, "prepare our weapons, and send a message to Engineer Wu Jin. Tell him it is time to show this thing what human engineering can really do." The Indomitable moved deeper into the system, toward the creature that had just proven itself the most dangerous thing in the galaxy. But Dae-ho was not afraid. His ship had been built by people who refused to accept that anything was impossible. It was time to put that philosophy to the test. Admiral Dae-ho stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, watching the stars through the main window. His ship was different from anything else in the galaxy. Where other ships looked smooth and clean, the Indomitable looked rough and built by hand. Metal plates covered strange machines that hummed with power. The ship was only 2 kilometers long, but it felt alive. "Sir, another message from the Galactic Council," said Captain Minna, his second officer. She was young but smart, and Dae-ho trusted her more than anyone else on the ship. "They want us to stay in our home system." Dae-ho smiled but said nothing. The Galactic Council had made the same demand for 50 years. Ever since they first found Earth, they treated humans like children. They said humans were too new, too dangerous, too different. The 12 main alien races controlled everything beyond the solar system. Humans could only watch from far away. "What else do they say?" Dae-ho asked. Minna looked at her screen. "Something big is happening out there. Whole star systems are going dark. No one knows what is causing it. The Council is scared." In the lower decks, Engineer Wu Jin checked his machines for the 100th time that day. The fusion core was his greatest work. It did not just make power like normal reactors. It pulled energy from places that should not exist. The alien races would call it impossible, but Wu Jin did not care what they thought was impossible. "How are we looking down there?" Dae-ho's voice came through the speaker. "Everything is perfect, Admiral," Wu Jin replied. "The core is running at full power. All systems are ready." Wu Jin had worked on human ships for 30 years. He remembered when Earth's first ship could barely reach the moon. Now they had built something that could challenge the greatest fleets in the galaxy. The aliens did not know this yet. They still thought humans used simple rockets and metal hulls. On Earth, Fleet Admiral Tae-young sat in the command center, watching reports come in from across space. The news was not good. 17 star systems had stopped sending signals in the past month. Each system had millions of people living there. Now there was only silence. "What do our long-range sensors show?" Tae-young asked his team. Something massive is moving through space, replied his chief scientist. The energy readings are unlike anything we have seen before. It is heading toward the core systems of the galaxy. Tae-young had fought in wars before, but this felt different. The alien races with their huge fleets and advanced weapons were running scared. If they could not stop this threat, what chance did humanity have? Back on the Indomitable, Daeho received new orders from Earth Command. He was told to keep the ship hidden and wait for more information. But Daeho had never been good at waiting. He had spent his whole life watching other races treat humans like they were nothing. Now something was threatening the entire galaxy, and the aliens still wanted humans to stay home and hide. Minna, what do you think about those missing systems? He asked. Minna pulled up a star map. Red marks showed where systems had gone dark. They are all in a straight line, sir. Whatever is doing this, it is moving with purpose. It knows where it is going, and where is it going. If the pattern continues, it will reach the Council's main systems in 6 months. After that, she paused. Earth would be next. Lieutenant Su-min worked at the communication station listening to radio signals from across the galaxy. Most of what she heard was normal traffic between planets and ships. But lately there had been other sounds. Emergency calls that cut off suddenly. Ships reporting strange readings before their signals died forever. Admiral, Su-min called out. I am picking up a new transmission. It is from the Valkyrian fleet. The Valkyrians had the strongest military in the galaxy. Their ships were twice as large as anything humans had ever built. Their weapons could destroy planets. If they were calling for help, the situation was worse than anyone thought. Put it through the speakers, Daeho ordered. The voice that came through was filled with fear. This is Captain Hyunsu of the Valkyrian flagship. We have engaged the enemy. Our weapons have no effect. The creature is eating our ships. Request immediate assistance from all Council forces. Then the signal cut to static. Daeho looked around his bridge. His crew was young and had never seen real combat. But they had trained for this moment their entire lives. Every human on the ship knew they were different from the alien races. They built things that should not work. They solved problems by refusing to accept that some things were impossible. Sir, Mina said quietly, our orders are to remain in the solar system. I know what our orders are, Daeho replied, but I also know what is right. He walked to the center of the bridge and activated the ship's communication system. His voice reached every corner of the Indomitable. Attention, all crew. This is Admiral Daeho. For 50 years, the galaxy has told us to stay home. They said we were not ready to join them among the stars. Today, I believe they were wrong. Not because we were not ready, but because they were not ready for us. He paused, looking out at the stars again. Something is destroying entire worlds out there. The strongest fleets in the galaxy cannot stop it, but we are not like them. We do not build our ships the way they do. We do not fight the way they fight. And we do not give up when others say something is impossible. Wu Jin smiled in the engine room. He had been waiting his whole life to see what his machines could really do. Set course for the Nexus system, Daeho commanded. Maximum speed. The Indomitable turned away from Earth and jumped into the darkness between stars. Behind them, the solar system grew smaller until it was just another point of light. Ahead lay the unknown, and whatever had made the galaxy's greatest warriors afraid. For the first time in 50 years, a human ship left home to face the universe on equal terms. The emergency session of the Galactic Council met within hours of receiving the survivors' reports. Representatives from all 12 major species gathered in the Great Hall on Centauri Prime, their faces showing fear that had not been seen in 1,000 years. 3,000 ships, said the Valkyrian representative, his voice hollow. The greatest fleet ever assembled, destroyed in 4 minutes. What about survivors? Asked the Zenthi delegate. 17 ships escaped. The rest were consumed. The creature fed on them like we might feed on grain. Fleet Admiral Tae-young sat in Earth's command center, watching the Council debate through a communication link. For 50 years, Earth had begged for a seat at the Council table. Now finally, they were being invited to speak. But only because the galaxy was desperate. Admiral Tae-young, said the Council chairman, a tall being with blue skin and 6 arms. Your species has remained isolated in your home system. Do you have any ships that could assist in this crisis? Tae-young looked at the alien faces on his screen. Most of them had never spoken directly to a human before. They still thought of Earth as a primitive world with simple technology. We have one ship, Tae-young replied. the Indomitable. But it is already en route to engage the enemy. The council chamber erupted in shocked voices. Several representatives stood up, their alien features twisted with anger. You sent a single ship against something that destroyed our combined fleets? The Zenthi delegate shouted. This is madness. With respect, Tae-young said calmly. Your combined fleets failed because you built them to fight enemies like yourselves. This creature operates under different rules. And you think one human ship can succeed where we failed? I think, Tae-young replied, that you do not understand what human ships are capable of. On the Indomitable, Dr. Ji-hai ran final tests on her reality distortion field generators. She was humanity's leading expert on theoretical physics, but her work went far beyond theory. Where alien scientists studied the universe to understand its laws, humans studied it to figure out how to break those laws. Admiral, she reported to Daeho over the communication system, all quantum-locked systems are operating perfectly. The ship exists in 17 different probability states simultaneously. Any attack that hits us also misses us, and the universe defaults to the outcome we prefer. And the gravitational weapons? Daeho asked. Ready, sir. We can convince local space-time that gravity points in any direction we choose. The targeting computer is locked onto the creature's center of mass. Captain Minna studied the sensor readings from the recent battle. The Devourer's attack pattern made no sense according to galactic military doctrine, but she was beginning to see a pattern. Sir, she said to Daeho, I think I understand how this thing fights. It does not exist fully in our dimension. It phases between different layers of reality, only becoming solid when it wants to attack or feed. Can we track its movement between phases? Not with normal sensors, but our quantum detection array might work. It operates on principles that most of the galaxy considers impossible. General Dongwu coordinated Earth's response from the Strategic Command Center. Reports were coming in from across human space as word of the galactic crisis spread. But instead of panic, he saw determination. Humans had always done their best work when facing impossible odds. What is our backup plan if the Indomitable fails? Asked his aide. There is no backup plan, Dongwu replied. Either our ship succeeds or the galaxy falls to this creature. But I have faith in our people. We do not build ships the way others do. Commander Yansu ran through pre-flight checks on her experimental fighter craft. It was too small to mount the reality distortion generators that protected the main ship, but it had other advantages. Where the Indomitable could exist in multiple probability states, her fighter could exist in multiple timeline states. She could attack an enemy before she decided to attack it. Fighter wing ready, Admiral, she reported. All pilots understand the mission parameters. Good, Daeho replied. Remember, this creature has never faced human engineering before. It will expect weapons that follow galactic physics. Give it something unexpected. Back on Earth, Engineer Woojin's mentor, Dr. Hansol, reviewed the technical specifications one final time. She had helped design the zero-point energy core that powered the Indomitable. But even she was not sure what would happen when they pushed it to full output. The core draws energy from universes where entropy flows backward, she explained to a room full of scientists. In those universes, time runs in reverse and energy flows from cold to hot. We are borrowing that energy to power our weapons. Is that safe? Asked one of the younger scientists. Dr. Hansol smiled. Probably not. But safety was never the point. The point was to build something that could challenge the impossible. The Galactic Council continued their emergency session, but the debate was going in circles. Every military strategy they discussed had already failed against the Devourer. Their greatest scientists could not even explain how the creature's technology worked. Perhaps we should evacuate the core worlds, suggested the Krillian representative. Move our populations to the outer rim where the creature has not yet reached. And then what? Replied the chairman. Wait for it to hunt us down one by one? This thing has devoured 17 galaxies. It will not stop until it has consumed everything. Fleet Admiral Tae-young requested permission to address the council again. When they granted it, he stood up in his command center, his image appearing on screens throughout the galactic capital. Honored representatives, he began. You are debating strategies based on your understanding of how the universe works. But this creature operates beyond your understanding. It requires a response that also operates beyond your understanding. What are you proposing? Asked the chairman. I am proposing that you trust the species you have kept isolated for 50 years. We build our technology differently, Because we think about reality differently. Where you see universal laws that cannot be broken, we see engineering challenges that have not been solved yet. That is impossible, said the Zenthi delegate. Physics is physics. Matter is matter. Energy is energy. These are fundamental truths, are they? Tae-young replied. Your own sensors show that this creature phases through matter at will. It draws energy from sources you cannot detect. It moves through space without propulsion. By your definition of physics, the Devourer should not exist, yet it destroyed your fleets in 4 minutes. The council chamber fell silent. The human had made a point they could not argue with. What makes you think your ship can succeed where ours failed? The chairman asked. Because, Tae-young said, we built it specifically to do things that should be impossible. And in 50 years of human spaceflight, impossible has never stopped us from trying. The communication link ended, leaving the council to debate among themselves. But in the Nexus system, the Indomitable was already approaching its target. The creature that had devoured galaxies was about to face something it had never encountered before, a species that refused to accept the limits of reality. Admiral Daeho stood on his bridge, watching the energy readings spike as they drew closer to the Devourer. His ship hummed with power that came from places that should not exist, armed with weapons that worked by convincing the universe to ignore its own rules. All stations report ready. Admiral, Captain Minna announced. Good, Daeho replied. It is time to show this creature what human determination can accomplish. The battle that would decide the fate of the galaxy was about to begin. The Devourer noticed the small human ship when it reached the inner system. To a creature that had consumed galaxies, the Indomitable looked like a tiny insect. It measured only 2 kilometers compared to the Devourer's massive 200-kilometer length. The alien entity felt curious rather than threatened. Another ship comes to feed me, the Devourer thought to itself. This one is different from the others. Its energy signature is unusual. Admiral Daeho stood on his bridge studying the massive creature through the main viewer. Up close, it looked even more wrong than the sensor readings had suggested. Its hull seemed to shift between metal and flesh, solid matter and empty space. Parts of it existed in their dimension while other parts faded in and out of reality. Analysis. Dr. Jihi, he requested. The creature exists in at least 7 dimensions simultaneously, came the reply from the science station. It phases between them at will, becoming solid only when it chooses to interact with our reality. Can our weapons lock onto it? Yes, sir. Our quantum targeting system can track it across all dimensional states. The Devourer extended its consciousness toward the human ship, trying to understand what it was seeing. The vessel's hull existed in multiple probability states at once. Its weapons drew power from universes that should not be accessible. Its engines worked by convincing space itself to move rather than pushing through it. Impossible, the Devourer concluded. These beings build their technology using principles that violate fundamental laws. The creature decided to test the human ship with the same attack that had destroyed the Council fleets. It focused its matter dissolution beam, a weapon that unmade atoms at the quantum level. The beam shot out bright enough to burn shadows into planets. The beam struck the Indomitable directly and passed through it harmlessly. Report, Daeho commanded. Quantum-locked armor is functioning perfectly, Dr. Jihi announced. The attack both hit us and missed us simultaneously. Since we expect our armor to work, the universe defaulted to the timeline where the attack missed. Captain Minna checked her tactical display. Sir, the creature appears confused. It is scanning us with multiple types of sensors. Let it scan, Daeho replied. It has never encountered technology that refuses to follow the rules. Wujin, how is our power core? Running at optimal levels, Admiral, came the reply from engineering. All systems show green. The zero-point generators are drawing unlimited energy from reverse entropy universes. The Devourer tried a different approach. If energy weapons would not work, it would ram the small ship with its massive bulk. The creature phased through space, appearing directly on top of the Indomitable. But instead of passing through the human ship as it had expected, the Devourer slammed into it like hitting a solid wall. The impact sent shockwaves through both vessels. For the first time in its existence, the Devourer had encountered something that refused to let it phase through. Reality anchors are active, Dr. Jihi reported as the ship shook from the impact. We convinced local spacetime that solid objects cannot pass through each other. The creature is temporarily locked in our dimensional state. Now, Deho ordered. Captain Minna activated the gravitational lance. The weapon did not fire projectiles or energy beams. Instead, it convinced a cone of space that gravity pointed directly at the target. Within that cone, the Devourer suddenly experienced gravitational forces equal to those at a black hole's event horizon. The creature's exotic matter hull began to compress under impossible gravitational pressure. For the first time in eons, the Devourer felt something it had not experienced since its creation. Pain. Impossible. The creature's mental voice screamed across all dimensions. Gravity cannot be controlled by mere technology. It can if you refuse to accept that it cannot be, Minna replied, though she knew the creature could not understand her. The Devourer fought back with weapons that had destroyed star systems, energy cannons that fired concentrated dark matter, weapons that aged targets to death in seconds, reality disruptors that made matter forget how to hold together. Every attack passed harmlessly through the Indomitable. The ship existed in 17 different probability states, and in at least one of those states, every attack missed. Since humans expected their defenses to work, that was the reality the universe provided. Second minute, announced Lieutenant Sumin. All weapons are performing beyond specifications. Engineer Wu Jin prepared his most dangerous creation. Admiral, requesting permission to reverse the zero-point energy core. Explain, Deho ordered. Instead of drawing energy from reverse entropy universes, we push our local entropy backward. Time will flow in reverse in a small area around the target. Its thoughts will run backward, its weapons will unfold before they fire. Do it. Wu Jin activated the entropy reversal field. Around the Devourer, causality began to flow backward. The creature's computational matrix, which had been thinking at faster than light speed, suddenly found its thoughts running in reverse. Weapons it had fired began to unfold back into their component parts. Energy it had gathered scattered back to its sources. The Devourer tried to escape, but it was trapped in a bubble of backward time. Every move it made happened before it decided to make it. Every thought it thought had already been unthought. Third minute, Sumin announced. Admiral Deho activated the ship's final weapon system. The causality reversal cannon had been Dr. Jihai's most ambitious project. It did not fire energy or matter. It fired effects that happened before their causes. Target locked, Captain Minna reported. Causality weapon ready to fire. Fire. The weapon activated, but nothing seemed to happen. No beam shot out, no explosion occurred. But across space and time, something impossible began to unfold. The Devourer found itself being destroyed by weapons that would not be invented for another 1,000 years. Wielded by a species that should not have been able to leave their home planet. The creature's hull began to unravel, as it was hit by attacks from its own future. Its feeding tentacles withered as they encountered energy signatures that had not yet been created. Its consciousness, which had devoured the thoughts of trillions of beings, began to fragment as it tried to process effects without causes. Fourth minute, Sumin announced. The Devourer made one final attempt to escape. It tried to phase into dimensions beyond human reach, to retreat to the spaces between realities where it had been born, but the Indomitable's quantum-locked systems held it in place, forcing it to remain in the dimension where human weapons could reach it. I do not understand, the creature broadcast on all frequencies as its body began to dissolve. Your species should not be able to do this. Your technology violates fundamental laws of reality. Admiral Deho opened a communication channel. You are right. Our technology should not work. But we built it anyway because we do not accept that some things are impossible. But the laws of physics are suggestions, Deho replied, and humans have never been good at following suggestions. The Devourer's final scream echoed across 17 galaxies as it ceased to exist. The creature that had consumed worlds and devoured stars was unmade by weapons that convinced the universe to ignore its own rules. All weapons powered down, Captain Minna reported. Target destroyed. 4 minutes, 17 seconds, Lieutenant Sumin announced. Same as the Council fleet, but with a different outcome. Engineer Wu Jin's voice came over the communication system. Admiral, all systems are functioning normally. The impossible is working exactly as designed. Admiral Deho looked out at the space where the Devourer had been. Now there was only empty darkness and the distant glow of dying stars. The creature that had threatened to consume the galaxy was gone. destroyed by a species that refused to accept the limitations of reality. Send a message to Earth, Deho ordered. Tell them the mission is complete. The galaxy is safe. But even as he said it, Deho knew this was only the beginning. The galaxy had seen what human technology could accomplish. Some would welcome humanity as saviors. Others would fear them as a new threat. Either way, the universe would never be the same again. News of the Devourer's destruction spread across the galaxy within hours. On every world, in every space station, beings who had prepared for death instead received word of an impossible victory. A single human ship had accomplished what the greatest fleets in galactic history could not. The Galactic Council emergency session reconvened with a very different atmosphere. Where before there had been fear and desperation, now there was confusion and wonder. The representatives stared at Fleet Admiral Tae-young's image on their screens with a mixture of awe and growing concern. "You are certain the creature is destroyed?" asked the chairman. "Completely," Tae-young replied. "Our ship's sensors confirm total dispersal of the entity's matter and energy. The threat has been eliminated." "By one ship," said the Valkyrian representative slowly. "One ship that we were told was humanity's only military vessel." "That is correct." The Zenthi delegate leaned forward. "Admiral Tae-young, we need to understand how this was possible. Our finest scientists cannot explain how your weapons worked." "Your ship defied every known law of physics," Tae-young smiled. "That was the point. We designed it specifically to do things that your scientists would consider impossible." The council chamber erupted in worried voices. Several representatives began speaking at once, their alien features showing alarm rather than gratitude. "You built weapons that violate the fundamental laws of reality?" the Krillian representative demanded. "We built weapons that ignore limitations," Tae-young corrected. "There is a difference." On the Indomitable, Admiral Deho received reports from across the galaxy as word of their victory spread. Most of the messages were grateful, thanking humanity for saving countless worlds, but others expressed fear about what humans might do with their impossible technology. "Sir," Captain Minna said, "we are receiving a formal invitation from the Galactic Council. They want to offer Earth full membership and request our immediate assistance in defending the galaxy." "And what else?" Deho asked, noting her concerned expression. "Several military fleets are requesting detailed information about our weapon systems. They want to understand how our technology works." Dr. Ji-hai looked up from her science station. "Admiral, I do not recommend sharing our technical specifications. Our technology only works because we approach physics differently than they do. If they try to copy our methods without understanding our philosophy, the results could be dangerous." Engineer Wu Jin's voice came over the communication system from the engine room. "The zero-point energy core is designed around human assumptions about reality. If other species try to build one using their understanding of physics, it might tear holes in spacetime." 6 months later, Admiral Deho stood in the new Institute for Applied Impossibility on Earth. The building had been constructed in just 4 months, a monument to human engineering that seemed to defy gravity and basic architecture. It existed in multiple dimensional states, allowing it to be larger inside than outside. Dr. Ji-hai had been appointed as the Institute's director. Her job was to teach alien scientists how to think like humans about the nature of reality. It was proving more difficult than anyone had expected. "The problem," she explained to Deho during his visit, "is that their minds are trained to accept universal constants as absolute truths. When I tell them that gravity can be controlled, they ask for mathematical proofs. When I show them the proofs, they say the mathematics is impossible." "Have any of them made progress?" Deho asked a few. "Mostly younger scientists who have not spent decades learning that certain things cannot be done. But even they struggle with the basic concept that the universe will follow your expectations if you are confident enough in them." Captain Minna had been promoted to lead the first joint human-alien expedition into the regions the Devourer had previously consumed. Her mixed crew of humans and aliens was learning to work together, but the differences in thinking remained challenging. "The Valkyrian science officer keeps asking for detailed sensor readings," she reported to Deho during a communication call. "She cannot understand how we navigate through areas where space itself has been damaged. She wants to study the mathematical models." "What do you tell her?" "That we do not use mathematical models. We ask our navigation computer to find the way home, and we trust it to ignore any physical laws that might prevent it from doing so." Engineer Wu Jin had established a new research facility dedicated to scaling up human technology for galactic use. His latest project was a space station that existed in 17 different solar systems simultaneously, allowing instant communication across vast distances. The alien engineers want to understand how it works, he told Daeho during a tour of the facility. I keep telling them it works because we built it to work. They keep asking for technical specifications and operational theories. Can you give them what they want? I tried writing up the specifications, but they just confused everyone more. How do you explain that the station works by convincing space to be smaller than it actually is? Their computers say the math is impossible, so they assume the station should not exist. The Galactic Council had finally granted Earth full membership, but the integration was proving complicated. Human representatives often proposed solutions that other species considered impossible, while alien proposals struck humans as unnecessarily limited by outdated thinking. General Dongwu had been appointed as Earth's first galactic defense coordinator. His job was to coordinate human military technology with traditional galactic forces. The early results were promising but chaotic. We gave the Zenthi fleet our shield generators, he reported to the Earth Council. Their ships are now practically invulnerable to conventional weapons, but they keep running diagnostic tests to figure out how the shields work. What is the problem with that? Asked one of the counselors. The shields work because the crew believes they work. Every time the Zenthi engineers try to analyze them scientifically, they weaken the effect. One ship lost its shields completely when the science officer proved mathematically that they should not exist. Commander Yeon-su had been tasked with training alien pilots to use human fighter craft. The small ships could attack enemies in the past, present, and future simultaneously, but only if the pilot understood the conceptual framework behind the technology. The alien pilots are excellent, she reported. Better reflexes than humans, faster reaction times, superior spatial awareness. But they cannot make the fighters work properly. Why not? Because they think too much. When I tell them to attack an enemy in the past, they ask how causality paradoxes will be resolved. When I explain that the fighter prevents paradoxes by existing in multiple timeline states, they want to study the temporal mechanics. While they are thinking about how it works, human pilots are already shooting down targets that have not been launched yet. 1 year after the victory over the Devourer, reports began arriving from the far edges of the galaxy. Long-range sensors had detected similar entities in nearby galaxies, creatures identical to the one that had been destroyed. The Galactic Council called another emergency session. This time, Earth was not invited as a desperate afterthought, but as the primary military power responsible for galactic defense. How many entities are we facing? Admiral Daeho asked, now wearing the insignia of Supreme Admiral of Galactic Defense. At least 12, replied the chairman. Possibly more. They appear to be moving in coordinated groups, suggesting intelligence and communication between them. What is our response capability? Fleet Admiral Tae-young answered from Earth. We have completed construction of 50 vessels using modified human technology. Each ship is crewed by mixed human-alien teams and equipped with reality distortion weapons. Will that be enough? For the current threat, yes. But Admiral, Tae-young's expression grew serious. We need to discuss long-term strategy. These creatures come from somewhere beyond our galaxy. There may be thousands of them, possibly millions. Daeho nodded. What do you recommend? We need to take the fight to them. Build ships capable of intergalactic travel and eliminate the threat at its source. Is such a thing possible? Engineer Wu Jin's voice came through the communication system. Admiral, I have been working on the conceptual framework for an intergalactic vessel. The main challenge is convincing space to be shorter than it actually is across distances of millions of light years. How long would such a project take? If we limit ourselves to known physics, approximately 50,000 years. If we ignore known physics and focus on what needs to be accomplished, maybe 18 months. The Galactic Council representatives looked at each other with expressions that had become familiar over the past year, a mixture of amazement and growing concern about humanity's approach to engineering. Supreme Admiral, the chairman said carefully, your species has saved our galaxy and proven themselves valuable allies. But we must ask, what are the limits of human technology? Is there anything you cannot accomplish? Admiral Daeho smiled, the same expression he had worn when facing the Devourer. Honored Chairman, we have never found anything that was impossible if we refused to accept that it was impossible. The universe is full of suggestions about what cannot be done. Humans have always been very bad at following suggestions.